So some of you may have missed this, but during the Xbox Direct, there was something aside from Black Ops 7. They announced a new console, a handheld console that I think sounds pretty good. And on stream, we were sent a video from some ordinary gamers about the handheld, and let's check it out.
Guys and gals, you know what? Microsoft finally responded. And what do they respond to, ladies and gentlemen? You know, I made a video about a week ago where I said, you know, they were sweating bullets. Ever since that good old Steam Deck, that SteamOS decided to open up, come out into all these handheld gaming computers.
Yeah, so this is actually a big thing. We did do a video on it. All the handhelds now have a Steam operating system on them, which is a big deal.
And it turns out the performance was beating the crap out of Microsoft, and I even showed it from my own testing with games like Cyberpunk 2077. But when it came to battery life on these big chunky handhelds, even Linux was actually giving you a better run for your money than good old Microsoft Windows. Now, I think it's pretty embarrassing.
So for those of you who don't understand how these handhelds works, and by the way, I think this is going to be the future of Xbox as well, they run an operating system. They're a PC. Their handheld PC is what you are playing. So they run an operating system. So whether that operating system be Linux, Windows, or Steam, who created the new SteamOS. And apparently the SteamOS was like currently operating as the best one, running the most games, with the best battery life at the best quality. So then they announced this handheld.
When Microsoft Windows gets beaten by Linux and running its own applications in certain cases, especially gaming. Now, because of that actual, I would say, embarrassment, Microsoft responded, and you know what? I'm actually pretty impressed.
So am I.
So yesterday there was this big Xbox like games showcase, and honestly, I didn't really care much for many games. Like Gears of War 1 is getting like a remake again, and it's showing up on PlayStation. Which honestly, if this was like old school me, like you know high school console warrior, I'd probably be a little mad. But nowadays that I'm in my 30s, honestly, the more people that get to play some Gears of War, the better. You know?
Yeah, I'm wondering if anyone takes that stance anymore. Like, for example, like you have your Sony ponies and your Xbox and everything like that. Does anyone take the stance anymore that if, say, for example, the next Naughty Dog game, Intergalactic, is a day one game on Xbox? Would people be mad at that? I don't think they are. I think people just want everyone to be able to play games.
There's one game on there. Persona 4 is getting remade, and it looks pretty awesome. Now, one of the things that, you know, was shown towards the end of it was Xbox's Ally X. So yeah, there's actually a handheld. Ladies and gentlemen, we now live in the handheld wars. You know, it's so crazy. Like, I grew up with, like, Game Boy Advance. I grew up with the
Here's what's cool about these handhelds, though. Before he even gets into explaining what they are, here's what's cool about these handhelds. They run everything. So it's not like this handheld is actually being like, we have exclusives on this handheld. They're like, we run everything. So the actual goal of these handhelds is to be the best possible piece of hardware that exists. That is the only way to compete. Because before, the competition wasn't, oh, PlayStation runs at this many frames per second on this game and Xbox runs at this many frames per second. Yes, Digital Foundry existed on that and some people cared, but for the most part, it was this one has The Last of Us, this one has Halo. Which game do you want to play? That's no longer the case. It is this runs everything, which one runs it better?
PSP, and sometimes I wish even Sony took this seriously. But now every big gaming company's got a handheld gaming system. And Xbox, you know, I don't know if you could say this is made by them. It's definitely partnered and sponsored. So yeah, this is the Xbox ROG Ally X.
I might get one.
And it actually seems like it's going to be a pretty big, beefy upgrade over that old Steam Deck. Now, just looking at this thing, I know people are a little mixed, but I actually like the way it looks. I feel like the grips feel good in the hand. I've got big bear paws, so I think it's going to be fine. You know, I think the actual, thumbsticks are great. I love it when these thumbsticks are, like, depressed. I don't know exactly what you call them, but they just feel so much better for playing.
It's called concave there. It's called concave.
Playing games, as opposed to, like, these nipple, like, PlayStation style, like,
That one's called convex.
Thumbsticks, like PS3 style ones, where your fingers are usually just like kind of slipping all over the place. I will say, I don't like the fact that there's no trackpad. Like, this is my Legion Go, and if you rip off one of the Joy-Cons off this, literally they have little touchpads, and these are so important for like old PC games. Like, bro, I've been playing Knights of the Old Republic on my Steam Deck, and if it wasn't for the goddamn trackpads, that game would be annoying to control, okay? It's like an old school PC game before like controller inputs were a thing. Now, honestly, the big thing about this
So for the mouse, I didn't think of that.
what are the actual specifications, Muda, when it comes to this device? Now, for a lot of the people that have been like researching and talking about this, according to a lot of the, journalists on here, this Ally comes with the new AMD Ryzen Z2 chip with 16 gigs of LPDDR5X 64.
Thank God, I was hoping it did.
100 RAM. And of course, the Ally X, that Xbox Ally X, upgrades to a Ryzen AI Z2 Extreme processor, 24 gigs of memory, and a whole terabyte SSD. Now, I imagine this is going to be a pretty expensive product. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it.
Yeah, hold up. Do they not have prices out on any of these yet? Has there been leaked prices or anything? Does anybody know anything about that?
It's probably going to be more expensive than like any other handheld that I know of. Easily more expensive than the Steam Deck, even the OLED. It's going to be more expensive than that Legion Go. It's probably going to be more expensive than like the Nintendo stuff. It's going to be more expensive than the PlayStation goddamn Portal, and that thing doesn't even play fucking games on it. Now, the AMD Ryzen 2 Z2 Extreme is the ultimate performance for elite handheld gaming. And of course, honestly, I think there needs to be a bit of a hardware upgrade. Like, I love the Steam Deck, but let's not ignore the fact that the Steam Deck is like 4 years old at this point. I think 2020 technology is pretty much where it's at. And in some cases, the Steam Deck's great, right? Like, I think it's like when you look at the performance for the...
Sounds like his voice is Bill Cosby. He should say Puddin' Pops.
wattage,
Oh, boy.
it's so good. You can get so much performance out of such low wattage that you basically can play like a lot of emulated games on this. I use mine right now to play shit like Battlefront 1 and 2, PS2 on the actual Steam Deck, and I'm getting like 6, maybe 7 hours of battery life. It's actually fucking insane.
That is pretty insane.
Now, obviously, when it comes to more recent games that have come out, that Steam Deck isn't really cutting it, okay? The games are running kind of poopy. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you might get the game running at like 240p and upscale the shit out of it just to get it at least up to maybe...
So here's the thing. I don't think he's talked about this, but Xbox is going hard into the Play Anywhere thing, which is cloud gaming, which is playing over the cloud, which means you need less processing power. Now, it seems like the thing that they're making has quite a bit of processing power, but yeah, it worries me, and I think it's good at the same time, because then technically you shouldn't have any of these problems. Technically
20 to 30 frames, which again, that's why this device is pretty goddamn important. Now, going to Microsoft's little visual matrix over here, yeah, this thing might come with that Extreme processor. This would be the one that I'd be interested in. It's got Windows 11 Home, so yay! It's got a 1080p screen, 120 hertz refresh rate, which is great considering that you're not playing your games at 120. You're probably playing them at 40 frames, all right, locking that panel and just getting a smooth experience. And of course, when you look at the actual battery, 80 watt hours is pretty good. With a 715 gram body, it's actually a pretty solid device. I won't lie. Like, it actually looks pretty goddamn good. So immediately, this wouldn't be a video worth making if it wasn't to talk about apparently
that's a good point, Fall. So like the texture streaming that COD has, imagine streaming an entire game through that is essentially what the Play Anywhere thing is. Like, that's so, for example, there's certain games and TVs that you can just, like Xbox Play Anywhere, load up the Xbox app on your TV and play and run the entire thing through Wi-Fi. And in theory, this is genius. But if you're playing a game like Call of Duty where lag matters, it just doesn't work. So yeah, it's for example, my internet at my house right now is not good enough to do it. It's just not.
The hood shit that Microsoft's doing. So, whereas the Steam Deck and the SteamOS software solution is so good that, it literally just feels like you have a console in your hand. One of the things that's super duper important is you don't really want people to get into the weeds of what operating system
Yes,
your
100%.
your gaming console is on, right? Like, for instance, if I asked you right now, honest to God, what operating system do you think the PlayStation 5 runs on?
The PlayStation
And
operating system.
most of you, I would assume, probably don't know that off the top of your head.
I'm going to go with the
But
PlayStation
it runs
one.
off FreeBSD,
I was
Orbis
close.
OS.
I was close.
They forked
Yeah.
a version of FreeBSD over, and then they built PlayStation's current operating system on top of it. When you look at things like Valve's SteamOS, I'm sure most people who purchase it, even just the most casual gamer that wants to play
My internet speed, I get around 400 down and about 50 up.
their Steam games on the go, they might not even know or care that it's powered by Linux. They might just enjoy the fact that as soon as they hit the power button, it loads up into the SteamOS interface, and they can just, tap their game, hit that big green
90% of people who are going to use a handheld want ease of use. 90% of people. Why do you think iPhones are so popular? Just putting that out there. Technically, Android is a better phone in almost every single way, depending on the phone that you're looking at. The camera's better, the way that it runs better, battery life better. Almost all of their phones are better in every single way. So why do you think Apple sells so many more phones, specifically in North America? Because people don't want to have to think about how it works. People want to open their phone, click message, open their phone, click TikTok, open their phone, click Apple, and it just works. They don't want to have to think about where it downloads to, and when I click save photo, whether or not it's going to go to my camera roll or a file within a file within a file. Apple just is easier to use. And if you all of a sudden put like literally just Windows from my PC, that's why a lot of people do not play PC games, is because you have to know where your files are saved, and if the file's corrupted, how do you fix it? And honestly, half the time you have to like re-download things. It doesn't just work. Half the times it doesn't work at all. So he's 100% right.
play button, and boom, things just work out of the box. So again, that's one of the things that Microsoft has kind of been going for. A lot of these handheld, like Windows-based systems just feel like, janky PC experiences, right? You fire them up, you see the Windows like desktop for a little bit, and then there's usually some custom software that gets modded in by Lenovo or Asus or whatever company, and it just kind of tries to mimic that Steam Deck, but it doesn't truly get there. So what Microsoft has done is they've got the Xbox full screen experience. Now, when you power on your Ally, you'll boot directly into that experience, meaning that from what it sounds like, there ain't no jankiness. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a screen you're going to be seeing. This Xbox.
Which, by the way, let me actually just, let's go like this. Hopefully I'm logged in. This is the screen that you'll boot into. It's almost, do you notice that it's almost exactly the same? Just like that. More or less.
Xbox looking screen. Now, it doesn't look too different from firing up the Xbox app on your Windows system.
There you go.
And just full screening it. So I'm wondering if it's kind of just like that, if it's still somewhat janky. But overall, I mean, this looks pretty interesting. It kind of matches the Xbox system software, which, again,
I want to see how like the Steam and everything work, and they do show it in the trailer briefly, but
kind of hoping that Microsoft would follow what I said. Not that, they would even hear it, because I'm not even that relevant in the grand scheme of things. But the way that Microsoft has like the Xbox One, like with its software, like I've talked about it like literally last week. You fire up your Xbox, it uses Hyper-V, and it basically virtualizes every single one of these games. And it's because that every single one of these games are virtualized. So for instance, if you fire up Gears Tactics and then you immediately load a Balatro, because they're virtual machines, Microsoft can save those system states, and it can actually like quick resume. That's how quick resume works. It just looks at a virtual machine's last known state, throws it back into memory.
That's kind of cool.
I was kind of hoping that this would open the doors and allow people to like maybe have some access to original Xbox or Xbox 360 backwards compatibility. Like if it had the Xbox system software and they just basically built
they don't want that. They want you to buy everything on Game Pass or like through Xbox or buy Game Pass.
Portable Xbox like Series S or X or whatever, dude, playing games like Lost Odyssey on the go would be the shit. And right now I can kind of do that on the Steam Deck, but I know if Microsoft put their weight behind it, it would just be a far more better experience, okay? Because that's really the area where Microsoft has a fucking serious lead over Steam or really any other competitor. So the other thing they said was they've got new modifications that minimize background activity and defer non-essential tasks. So you get more system resources that are dedicated specifically to gameplay. So more memory, higher frame rates, and a fully immersive experience. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to be straight up and saying it right here. Microsoft has realized, given recent testing, their systems are bloated. That's why SteamOS looked like it was giving better battery life, and it looked like you were getting better performance. So Microsoft is basically admitting to debloating Windows, or at least optimizing it for the task of gaming. Now, if I was Microsoft, one of the things that I probably would do is like, I wouldn't just release this on the Xbox Ally. I would make this an ISO file that anybody could download and install to any other device. You know, it'd be kind of sick if Microsoft released this similar to the vein that SteamOS recently just opened up their stuff. Imagine downloading this and then like installing it onto your Steam Deck or installing it onto any of these handheld devices and getting a better Windows gaming experience, right? One of the big advantages of Windows is direct access to Game Pass, and Game Pass is a pretty fucking good deal. It's got, access to anti-cheat games. So if you're somebody that plays Call of Duty, and I know a bunch of people do, if you're somebody that plays
Jano, thank you for the Prime sub, my friend.
GTA Online in the palm of your hands, or if you're somebody that plays any game that has an anti-cheat solution, this is still the best operating system to use. So thankfully, one of the interesting things that they also have over here is that they're not just limiting you to Xbox, which is
so this is
great,
the part that I'm interested in.
So what they said over here is with this new experience, you get an aggregated gaming library. So you get access to Xbox, Game Pass, Battle.net, and what they said is other leading PC storefronts. So I'm assuming
they said in the trailer that Steam's a part of that. They did say it out loud, but they guess they didn't include it in.
On this system, you can just install Steam, Epic Games, Ubisoft Connect, God forbid, what is it, like EA app, and you can just get all of those things harmonized into this experience, which again is pretty fucking great. It's pretty awesome.
So imagine like how I just booted up this, right? I pull up this and I pull up my on my handheld, and over here I have my Game Pass, I have my library, but then when I click my library, which I really don't have much on here, it would also pull up all my Steam games because it aggregates everything into one. Brilliant idea.
But again, to me, I kind of wish that this allowed you to use that Xbox system software. Like, I feel like there's such a great advantage that Microsoft has, and they're not using it. Because honestly, if you got access to the Xbox system software on these handheld devices, and through that you got your hands on, Xbox backwards compatibility, like the quick resume, all of the cool features the Xbox provides, that is shit the Steam Deck does not have, and they're pretty far from actually getting it. Like, if Microsoft could provide that, dude, it'd be over. It'd be great. And the thing about it is, like, there's also shit like X Wine 1. So for anybody that doesn't know, there's actually groups.
Killer Shrek, you're 100% right. He says, I think the next Xbox is basically just going to streamline an affordable PC for people who want PCs but can't afford it. And you're missing one thing in there, ease of use. So it'll just rock that same handheld system that they are rocking there, except it'll hook into a TV. And yeah, also, I think we are not far from the way of the consoles going out the window and just having it so that you can plug in that handheld that we just saw into the TV and play on a controller.
Of people putting together like Xbox
like a
One
Nintendo
emulators.
Switch.
So for instance, right here, you've got somebody running Forza Horizon 2 on a PC through an emulator. And this is just the community doing it. If Microsoft put their weight behind it, bro, you could actually achieve anything that you wanted. Now, the other thing that I really feel is important for this device, and Microsoft has to fucking nail it, is having Suspend working, right? Like, you better have the option where you can just like put your device to sleep and it doesn't break. That's one of the biggest issues with a lot of these Windows handhelds is like the moment you hit that pause button or like the power button, sometimes it just doesn't actually put the device into sleep. Now you could probably set your system to like hibernate and all that other shit, but this has to work out of the box, okay? The less tinkering you need to do to this system, the overall better of an experience it is. It's one of the reasons why I think the Steam Deck is such a fucking cool device for people, even people that don't PC game. They just love the Steam Deck because it really feels more like a console and less like a PC, even though you can use it as a PC, and I certainly use it like a PC depending on the kind of game that I fucking play. Now, I know that some people will be like, Muda, don't you like hate Microsoft here? And it's not really so much as hate. Like, I would never use Microsoft on my main system, which is why you always see me with like...
Here's the thing. I'm going to be honest here. I am not smart enough not to use Microsoft or Windows on my main system. Linux, I would be lost for about a year, and I just don't have time for that shit.
Linux Mint, you always see me with like a Linux desktop. It's because I think Linux in a lot of cases is just better. But again, like PCs over there that I have behind me, when I think of a dedicated gaming system, if this turns out to be as good as it's being billed, I might even replace Linux with Windows in my basement gaming console if the benefits are actually there, if Microsoft provides those benefits. Because ultimately, this is all about competition, right? When it comes to any of these handheld systems, we're a long ways away from Valve releasing another Steam Deck. Like, they themselves have said that they're waiting for a next generational change. So if you're somebody that's already getting kind of tired of the Steam Deck because it's aging a little bit hard, nothing stops you from picking up that Xbox Ally X. And because this is, again, a PC of all things, all it takes for you to do is wipe out the actual drive here and literally, I mean literally just replace this with SteamOS. And then you get those benefits if you wanted it, right? But over here, literally, this is the Xbox handheld, and it looks pretty decent.
I think I'm going to get one of these.
It looks interesting right over here.
I think it's going to be well above 550. As for the X, I bet you well, I'm Canadian, so I don't know. I literally almost bought a Switch 2 the other day. Like, I literally almost bought a Switch 2. I was at the store, and it was $6.99 with Mario Kart. And I'm like, I could stream it one day, but I'm like, when am I going to stream it?
Here, it looks like they've gotten kind of this console-like experience set up, something that looks like a real handheld and not like a janky computer that you hold in your hand with two thumbsticks, you know, on each side, right? That's kind of what I'm thinking over here, and that's kind of what's run through my head. But, you know, ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, there's not much more I can say over here. I think this is probably one of the best responses that I've seen from Microsoft. And, you know, it's a little bit too early to say, but, like, dude, it's always good to see competition, right?
No, the good part about this is it's coming out this winter, like this Christmas.
Especially in
not
this
even
space.
winter.
I really think, like, going into the future, I'm more interested with, like, handheld consoles than I am, like, dedicated systems. Like, honestly, this might be a bridge too far for some people, but like if the PlayStation 6 turned out to be like a handheld gaming system that you could, you know, dock to your television, I would be all for it, okay? Even if the graphics were like equivalent to a PS5, maybe just a little bit better, I think just having that hybrid form factor.
So that won't happen, and here's why. I get it. I agree with him, but that's from the perspective of someone who, if they're going to go in and play a high quality game, they're going to play it on PC, which is the minority of gamers. So that's where his perspective is, but that's not what the overall gaming community wants.
That, you know, let's be honest, Nintendo kind of popularized really. That is all I'm for. You know, this would be an amazing system. This would be like a replacement Xbox for me. If I could just dock this to
that's
the
exactly
TV,
what I was saying
which
before.
I easily can. Because ultimately, I think that handheld like form factor is all you pretty much need. Like, it's one of the reasons, like, I'm not even joking. I'm only really able to play like hundreds of hours of like RPGs now, just because I have the ability to like take it with me on the go and like dock it to a TV whenever I'm actually at home playing a video game. But yeah, to go back to it, man, Microsoft responded. They admitted they're a little bit behind. And honestly, you know, if they can close that gap to the Linux performance, all it does is get Valve to also keep pushing forward and innovating.
And that's good.
And ultimately, at the end, because of competition, the real winners in this entire story are you and I. Okay, the actual like people playing
Guys,
these
we
handheld
won.
systems.
Good news.
So yeah, pretty impressive stuff by pretty good news by Microsoft. And I'll be honest, man, like the first view on the Xbox handheld, like it ain't looking bad either. It ain't looking too bad. You know, I might play around with this. If Windows is good, I'll probably keep Windows on this device. If it isn't good, then thank God it's a fucking PC, because I can just go to SteamOS right here. I can just download the actual recovery image from this website and just burn it onto this device. Or better yet, what's even better than that is just go to Bazite, because I'm sure by the time it releases, you can just download it for that device and pretty much get the best gaming handheld experience as it drops. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I am out.
Yeah, so as a whole, this might be the first actual new console that I buy since PlayStation 5. Like, I have the PlayStation 5 sitting down there. It's right in here. I got a Switch. I think I have one of the new Xboxes, but that was the last one I bought. And it'll probably remain that way until this. Unless, Xbox, you want to send me one. That'd be stellar. Is the Steam Deck not better? It won't be anymore. But it'll probably be cheaper. So that's kind of the thinking on that one.